Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are starting a new show, the case study of Vanitas. I've heard so much about this show, but nothing about this show, which is just exactly how I like it. I am all for a new show where everybody recommends it. They're like, you should watch it, but they don't tell me what it's about, so I can be surprised. That's the jam that I like. So I'm really excited about this. We did a poll a little while back to pick a show to replace Sarune, and this is the one that won, and I was like, hell yeah! I was really excited. It won pretty handedly. I think it was a pretty safe win for Case Study of Vanitas, but I've had so many requests for this show, not only on Patreon and in the Discord, but also through YouTube. Lots of people have been like, are you gonna watch Vanitas? You gonna watch Case Study of Vanitas? You gonna sit down and watch that? And so here we are. So if you are joining Romania Black for the first time on this channel, hi. I am an English teacher and speech coach that just reviews anime and manga because I'm extremely passionate about it. It connects to my childhood. I love it. And I like to discuss and analyze shows after I watch them and then ramble on for you all. And somehow y'all treat it like podcasts or something and seemingly enjoy it. So I'm really grateful that you've decided to stop by and watch this show with me. It should be fun. I like to go in these series blind, so I ask first and foremost, especially if you're new, I'm very anti-spoiler. I don't like to be spoiled. I don't even like hints or clues or know what everybody's favorite episodes are. I like to go in blind so I can have a genuine reaction and discussion with y'all, but as long as you don't spoil or give any hints or clues, I like to read comments down below and talk about the series with you all, so I hope I'm able to do that. I am going to be listening to the series. I can't get my wireless headphones to work, so we're going to do it old school this way. I will have the subtitles up and a timer. With recent targets by Aniplex, I'm going to try to keep this as little content viewing as possible, but still make it to where y'all can watch along. So that's how that goes. And before we start this any further and get into the series, I want to give a special shout out to Patreon and especially my philanthropy tier. Over on Patreon, I have 3 different tiers. I have the $1 tier that gets to vote for shows like this whenever we replace shows, and also get access to the Discord to talk about shows such as this one. Also, I have the $5 tier that gets that access along with seeing the other videos a week ahead of time of everyone else on YouTube. So if you want to see episode 2 of Vanitas, if you're a patron, you've already got access to that watching this now. And then, obviously, we have our philanthropy tier, which go above and beyond getting all those perks, but also donating a little extra each month to help me buy the subscriptions that I do, to use the streaming services that I use, and to also help me buy anime and manga that I review and react to for this channel and discuss in transformative, wonderful ways. So for those philanthropists, I thank you so much. You all are featured right here, but I want to give a shout out to Edgar, to Anime Annie, to Nameless Monster, to Tyrone, to Truck, to Kenny, to Arjo, to Shimoyama, to Be Happy, Translucent Men, to Eric, to Sunspots, and then also to Be Happy. Yeah, thank you all so much. You guys don't have to do what you do, but you go above and beyond to support me, and I can't thank you enough. So, all of my love. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm excited, y'all. I have no clue what this show is about, but the only thing I've been told is that Wushin Sweebian, who is a fellow patron, sent me a DM saying that I should not watch the OP for episode 1 because it will give away it could give away characters that I've not seen yet in the episode by the time it airs. So I am going to skip the OP for episode 1. It's going to be a little difficult because there's a timer and I'm like, so I'm probably just going to hold my hand up here and just talk to you all about random things. I'm going to like hold my hand up here and just be like, so this random thing, or I'm going to look away from the camera like over here and be like, so we're going to ignore what's happening there and not pay attention to the OP. But I have been told I can watch the ED, and I've been told that there's an after credit scene with this first episode. So we'll go back and see the OP for episode 2. It'll be fine. But I've been told there's 2 cores, 2 12-episode cores. Excited. We'll talk about those and that structure as we go through, I'm sure. But I'm super excited, y'all. I feel like this series is a long time coming, and I can't wait to start it. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We've talked almost 5 minutes. We are going to start the case study of Vanitas and just see what all we've got cooked up here. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, one, and let's do this. Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm really excited by that. I cannot wait to watch the OP in episode 2. That's gonna be a lot of fun to watch that. I'm all right. I'm on board. I'm on board with this character that's like if Howl Pendragon met Sherlock met a vampire. If Howl Pendragon was moonlighting as Sherlock Holmes but was also a vampire, that's Vanitas. Or it seems to be. Seems to be so far. And then we have Noi, who's very naive and seems naive, right? And maybe is being set up to be shippable with our dear Vanitas. Which there's a lot going on. I had to bring, this is Whiteboard Coon. Whiteboard Coon helps me to explain all things. Whiteboard Coon may not make an appearance every episode of the case of Vanitas, but I usually will bring Whiteboard Coon out if I feel like there needs to be things to be explained. And we were thrown a lot in this episode. And I was like, okay, there are some shows, I feel like anime either goes one of two routes. It either goes the route of keeping you completely in the dark about the world building and lore, and it just trickles it out slowly but surely. Or it's like, hey, we've got a lot to explain. Here's some things you need to know, and then we'll build off of that. And this very much seems like the latter, which I'm fine with. I'm totally cool with that. It was just like, wow, we are gonna tell you things. But there seems to be like almost an unreliable aspect to the narration, because the things that are happening in the book at the beginning aren't quite matching up with what's happening currently in the story. So that part is rather interesting. So I want to go through it with you all and kind of break it down and see what all ends up happening. And the thing about this is, and I tell everybody on all of my shows for my channel, is that I like to theorize. I like to theorize what I think is going on in the series, and I oftentimes like to be proven wrong. I like to have a theory and for it to be completely proven wrong and something completely out of nowhere happens. And maybe if I'm right, that's cool, but I like to be proven wrong by a show where I think a show is going one direction and then it completely comes out of nowhere and surprises me. So, with that being said, I will likely posit some theories on Whiteboard Coon that will likely be wrong. And that's fine, but please don't feel the urge to comment down below how I'm right or how I'm wrong. I want to be surprised. So I don't want any hints or clues of things to come. I'm just going to ramble on my thoughts about the series and what I think is going on, some cool symbolic things that I notice, and we'll just have fun with it and then see where it goes from here. But I'm really excited. I feel like I need to wear blue for I just happen to have this leather jacket on for work, and I was like, I'll leave it on for the review because it's kind of chilly outside. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to wear blue every reaction for this show. It's gonna have to be a necessary thing, right? Because we have the Vampire of the Blue Moon. Now, what's interesting about this is that we establish early on about this blue moon, but we also establish that the blue moon it drains vampires of their powers, right? And I'm going to put vampire in quotation marks because we established that Vanitas, the current one, is supposedly human. Is supposedly human, but has the power to quote-unquote cure vampires and restore their true names. Which is rather interesting because it's kind of seems like each vampire has a unique name to themselves and ties to them. Like we had Florafel, who is tied to spring. And then we have Noi, who is the child of the Ark. Now, whether or not that's what their name means or if they are a child of the Ark is something altogether different, we don't know yet. But then we have Vanitas, who is supposedly human, but has the power to... I want to go through what the book says. The book says something different than how Vanitas describes himself by the end of the episode. I love the illustration and the drawing quality. I like the little blue cape, and it kind of looks like the monster that Florafel becomes. Kind of. A little bit, so that's interesting. And Vanitas has the claws. and kind of the darkness in the children's book that is kind of like the malady, which is interesting. So maybe Vanitas, like, maybe it's one of those things where it takes the power of the darkness and uses it for its own purposes. It like repurposes it. Maybe it like you have to kind of be a monster. Is it one of those things where you have to be a monster to fight a monster? Maybe, I don't know. But we have the vampire known as Vanitas, who is despised by their kind. Now, whether or not that Vanitas was actually a vampire or not, I don't know. We are going to assume that they are. The other vampires were born on the night of the crimson moon. So yeah, we have the other vampires that look actually kind of cute. They look rather, what's interesting is that the vampires under the red moon actually look really cute and innocent. So that's interesting. So we have the vampires that were born under the red moon, and they almost seem to be innocent, whereas Vanitas, which is under the blue moon, seems almost a little bit sinister, which is kind of fascinating, right? It's fascinating how the storybook portrays Vanitas almost like an antagonistic character. But then, the way that it looks, but then Vanitas was born under the blue moon, which is a sign of ill omen, and we find out later that that drains a vampire of their powers, of misfortune. Feared by the other vampires, he was driven away from the village. So yeah, so apparently this ill omen, the other vampire supposedly drove him away and kicked him and exiled him from their kind. Wandering alone in the woods, he faced the terrors of darkness in the cold clutches of snow. It was then that Vanitas made a vow to take vengeance upon the vampires born under the crimson moon. O foolish vampires who have persecuted me. And then the grimoire shall visit upon you a curse worse than death. Which is funny because it's not how the story goes in this episode, right? So supposedly the original Vanitas cursed and vowed to destroy the Red Moon Vamps. I'm wondering if maybe the maladies and everything that Vanitas is fighting, like with Florafel, maybe the maladies were originally from the grimoire, that the original Vanitas, because this name and power has been passed down, maybe the OG Vanitas did curse the other vampires and release these maladies into the world, and now current Vanitas is like, yeah, that's not how I roll. I'm actually going to reverse things and cure everyone and take back the maladies back into the book. Maybe it's like he's trying to like retract all the curses that were once let go, right? I like that there's like bats coming out of the book, right? And so Vanitas' special creation, which was a book imbued with the power to corrupt a vampire's true name. So that's where the malady comes from, right? Because we established that the malady, and there's another name for it that I'll put here, corrupts and takes the vamp's true name, which is essentially their essence or kind of their soul. Like, their name is their soul. It gave me very Spirited Away vibes, like when in Spirited Away, Chihiro is renamed Sin and slowly starts to lose that kind of their own agency. That's sort of what it reminded me of. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting lots of Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki references in this show. All right. But yeah, but that's the OG Vanitas. Whereas this Vanitas currently, or C Vanitas, seems to be wanting to cure them of that malady. So yeah, it makes me think that this current iteration of Vanitas is like, well, I don't like this, so let me fix some problems caused by my ancestors. And then Vanitas calls himself a doctor, so I was getting very Doctor Who vibes, like reincarnations of Vanitas over and over again, being different forms. Could be. But yeah, to corrupt a true vampire's name. Okay. Those who take my grimoire in hand shall have the blue light instilled in their eyes and become a bringer of death to all vampire kind. Okay, but he doesn't do that. He actually ends up saving them. So it's curious. The storybook says one thing, but reality is saying something a little differently. And then we have Vanitas here. Man, they just love to animate the hell out of Vanitas in this episode. They're like, give us this blue-eyed boy who has all the things happening. Okay. So we're gonna skip over the OP. Watch it next episode. And so, yeah, we have the idea of vampires coming back. So the idea is that vampires supposedly died out. They're no longer in existence. But surprise, surprise, they still are. What's interesting is I'm going to be curious about the rules of vampires in this world, because I like an illustration. The vampire has red eyes. There's a red moon behind them. Ha ha. But the vampires don't seem to be affected by sunlight. We're not, and they don't sparkle like diamonds like Twilight. So there's clearly these vampires are not affected by light. And honestly, they don't seek, like the one girl, Florafel, she kind of is after blood, but that's only because she's been possessed by the malady. So apparently, according to Noe, they can suppress their urge for blood quite easily. So I have lots of questions about the vampires and how that works in this story, but I'm assuming we'll find that out as we go. What's interesting is that Noi... Okay, so there is a little bit of lore here. It says, my great-grandfather claims to have seen one. And like, oh, that's just a ghost story. No need. The church's chasseurs have sprung into action. Okay, there were two terms mentioned in this episode. There was chasseurs, which is from the church. They have sprung into action. So they've clearly been sent maybe to take care of the situation, to remedy it. Then we have Noi in his sweet white coat. All right. And she's like, I'm so cold. And he noticed her instantly because he's a vampire too. So it's kind of cool that these two vampires didn't even know each other. And they were like, oh, hey, we're vampires. Cool. But they're keeping a low profile. Noi has one of my favorite combinations in any anime. I live for like a tan skin, white-haired protagonist. There's an aesthetic with it that I just love. It reminds me of some BL characters, like I think of Fee and Birds of Shangri-La. I think of the main character in Liquor and Cigarettes, which are both Zoraya Ranmaru BLs. I love those characters, and they're usually characters that are kind of like sassy bottoms. So I don't know if that will be the case with Noi. I don't know. I can't determine that yet, nor does it seem my place to. But we'll find out as we go, right? But he seems to like be able to both be simultaneously infatuated with Vanitas and also not put up with his shit. So I'm already all about this character. But poor Florafel, she's just like having a day, and he ends up helping her. But I love the purple eyes. It's great. And so we have the Café La Baline, where we have boissons, the Tisane Espresso, Café au Lait, and Vin, Rouge and Blanc. We have Gâteau de jour, Tarte Tatin, and then sandwiches and quiche. Why not? Why not? So yeah, he talks about her looking pale. He's very observant and astute, and like is not afraid to get in your personal space. No, he isn't, because he's like right up in her face, like, what's wrong? But I don't think he even realizes that she's a vampire yet until she like faints. I love Myrrh. I hope he gets Myrrh back. Myrrh, his little two-toned eyed cat with its heterochromia. And he's like, oh sure, he is Myrrh. The chibis in this series where he's just like sitting here doing this is so freaking adorable, where he's like, he is Myrrh. It's like, no, who are you? And at first he doesn't answer her question, but I'm all about this steampunk Paris, steampunk Euro, like it's like neo-Victorian kind of, where it's Victorian era, but it's steampunk and kind of futuristic. I'm all about it. I like a good steampunk story, so that the aesthetic is really jamming. But they talk about that these steamships are powered by a certain mineral, right? Because I was like, how the hell is that steamship even physically in the air? Doesn't make sense with those tiny little propellers. But they tell us. And so, okay. Now, before we get to the mineral that is powering this steampunk ship, Noi is really super excited to be in Paris. But from the children's book he was reading in the flashback, it seemed to be written in French too. So, and that begs the question of, with vampires, like, like, how old are they? Immortal? It doesn't seem like Vanitas is immortal. It seems like Vanitas is an identity that passes down, like reincarnates generation to generation, which makes me sad because that makes me think like the current Vanitas is eventually going to have to be killed and a new Vanitas will come from that. So I don't know if that's going to end up being the case, but it reads like that. And I'm like, oh no, you're going to get me attached to these two and then angsty things are going to happen. I don't like that. But I'm curious because Noe he seems very naive. He doesn't seem very old. And I'm like, how did he become a vampire? How long has he been a vampire? And has he been shut in his whole life? Because usually you think vampires are worldly. They've existed for so long. They've seen the world. They've trekked across the globe. There's nothing left for them to see. It's a kind of an isolated existence. But Noe seems to like love travel and seems to be like treats everything as if it's new. So I don't know how you become a vampire in this world, but he's been a vampire at least from the time he's been on the ship with his cat. Right? It's so cute though. I just love that he just like little chibis of him are so freaking adorable. I absolutely love it. So like who could known that this massive weight could fly? Astermite. So there's this thing called astermite. Some kind of crystal that's keeping it to float. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's truly awe-inspiring indeed. And so he is after the Book of Vanitas from the folktale of Vampire of the Blue Moon. And he didn't realize that she was a vampire. Not until she's like the malady takes over from her, right? At least not until that. So he didn't know she was a vampire. She didn't know he was a vampire. But she seems to have a reaction to the whole Book of Vanitas thing. It's almost like as if the curse inside of her reacted to the book being mentioned. Can't imagine why. But can we talk about how this series animates the hell out of Vanitas on top of the ship, saying, are you going to go through this? He's like, naturally. And like his hair flowing. And like, I know my target is within this very airship. Like with the hourglass and the blue sand. Like just the way the movement was and everything. It was so good. I was like, what is happening? Okay, and so we go to the terrarium. And he's like, do you truly believe there's such thing as the Book of Vanitas? And so then, okay, he received a letter saying the book had been cited in Paris, which is probably where Vanitas came from. And then what's interesting is that he says it was from my former teacher. Okay, so I theorized for a hot second the former teacher might have been Vanitas. Maybe it was the former Vanitas that was before the current one. I don't know. What we do know is that Noe has a sensei that seems quite fascinated by Noe's lack of fear. I wonder too if that means that maybe Noe will become the Vanitas that takes the current Vanitas' place. That's gonna be tragic and angsty too. I don't want that. I'm coming up with all these scenarios that I don't want to happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So his former teacher though says, Mon chaton, my dearest kitten. His teacher calling him his dearest kitten seems a bit eccentric and makes me think maybe he was a former Vanitas. I want to know what is Mon chaton. Mon chaton, my kitten. Okay, I don't call any of my students my dearest kittens, so we will make that what we can, right? But who knows? If this is maybe the current Vanitas, if the current Vanitas has lived a long time, maybe they've seen Noe since they were kids. He says that's why he's going to Paris. I liked the kind of the double fake out where at first you see the red pair of eyes fake towards her and you think, oh, Noe's a vampire. He just had a vampire air about him. Just saying. But then you realize that no, they're both vampires. They just didn't know it. Cool, right? That also sets up the precedent that you don't immediately tell who is vampires in this world. Like vampires, it's not like the vampires are telepathically linked to one another. you don't instantly know if your neighbor standing next to you is a vampire or not. It takes a special circumstance to point that out. So that's good to know. That will lead to maybe some interesting reveals later on of who is a vampire and who's not a vampire. But yeah, she's just having a lot of problems, and that's when Vanitas shows up, when she starts to lose it. I love the Vanitas' like gloves with the nails. It's very like cat-like. I love it. It looks kind of like a monster. It's interesting. But like I said, Vanitas is literally like if Sherlock Holmes and Howl Pendragon were vampires, basically. And of course, he's like, who the devil are you? And Noi's like, I thought I'd ask you the same, dude. I love that Noi is kind of a mix of, you have the vampires with red eyes, which Noi is, but then he's got the purple eyes, like he's a mixture of both. He's the bridge between worlds, the bridge between the Red Moon vampires and Vanitas, right? And God, you're in for a world of pain. Like, why do they draw him so handsome? Here's some friendly advice. Leave her and go. If you don't, you're in for a world of pain. Like, what the hell? Why do they draw him so sexily? This show knows what it's doing. And of course he like goes after him with the blade. And Noi has like John Watson vibes for sure. And tries to trip him and then knocks her over. But he's strong and he manages to like knock Vanitas away. Okay, and at that point Vanitas is like, yes, found my guy, found my new partner. What I find interesting is that in this story, we kind of see the opposite happen, where the storybook is about Vanitas saying he's going to destroy the vampires. But here we have current Vanitas is working with a Red Moon vampire. Now, he promptly abandons him when he finds a much hotter Red Moon vampire in Noi, but he was clearly like using his help to try to track down Florafel that he could sense the malady from. And again, he was sensing her. So the malady maybe came from the book and he was reclaiming it back, right? And so he could sense that she was there. Interesting. And he just laughs it off like, yeah, I was just thrown into a bench, but I underestimated that crimson-eyed. So he, too, is a vampire. Like, just look at him! And so, Vanitas is a human, apparently, but maybe the book grants him a little bit of strength there. And then we see her... The malady is creepy. Just gonna say, the malady is a creepy mofo. I'm not here for it. It looks very creepy and disturbing. It, like, invades her space. And then has this weird, like Yu-Gi-Oh style claw hand with the bangles, and it takes her and says it like takes her soul. Will you give this place your true name to me? So yeah, the true name is basically like their existence, their soul. Like, will you give your soul to me? And she doesn't fight back. And it's almost like it like kisses her and then sucks itself into her soul. Ugh. So gross. And then all like the black ink and everything. Again, feels very Studio Ghibli. But yeah, she like basically starts sucking his blood. And luckily, Noi's already a vampire, so it can't already turn him. But I'm wondering if he got infected by it, if he's going to have a similar thing with a malady attacking him now, if it's like a zombie effect, and Vanitas is going to have to cure him as well. I don't know. But I love that we have, like, the red imagery and, like, the black blood and everything coming out. You know what it reminded me of? And I said it in the reaction. Her, Florafel's transformation looked and reminded me a lot of Sailor Moon. Like, the very first episode of Sailor Moon where the woman owning the jewelry store, like, has the same thing happen with her eyes and, like, comes after them. Very similar. So that makes Vanitas kind of like this actually useful tuxedo mask. So, which is a lot of fun, right? And it has like these briars that come out and they're purple and poisonous. And he says that we shouldn't be devouring humans. We're forbidden from attacking humans. Okay, so the vampires cannot attack humans. I hope that Noi is not using myrrh for blood since he can't attack humans, right? And that's when Vanitas comes in to fight back. I love it. I love like the tiny blue little DNA strands and everything. Like, I love it. It's so, the blue's so crisp and beautiful. Every time Vanitas like goes through a room, he instantly has an air around him. Like there's a wind machine blowing through him. He's just like, he can't help but be glamorous, like a damn L'Oreal commercial every time he walks into the room. And he goes to the symptoms of a malady, shadow briars, the whole 9 yards. You're a malnomen. Your malnomen is eglantine, the prison of briars. So there's not only Floraphel, there's not only the vampires, but there are also these things called malnomen. And we see one called eglantine, which is the prison of briars. So clearly we have humans, we have malnomen, and we have vampires. And the malnomen, I'm wondering if the malnomen are like he says it's Red Moon vampires whose true names have been corrupted, right? And he's like, malnomen, what the heck is that? And he says a vampire's true name is akin to life itself, and hers was corrupted. And then I like this one vampire guy just has a gun. He's like, we have all these vampires that could have these really cool abilities, and he's just got like he's got a sport coat and a revolver. Like, why not? Why not, show? This redhead I'm all about it. Getting called Baldy. And he's like, are you one of the church's chasseurs? Or are you a bureau, an executioner here to slay her? And he just laughs. He's like, a chasseur, a bureau. So we have also bureaus, which are executioners. So we're getting lots of setup. We're getting lots of lore and setup of how this world operates. You have like bounty hunters. You have people trying to cleanse vampires. You have vampires not technically being real and not supposed to attack humans. Then you have this Sherlock mofo Vanitas. It's great. And he's like, none, I'm going to cure her. I'm a doctor and my specialty is vampires. I've come to cure her. I love that shot with the blue light. The blue leather cover, pages black at night. I love it. The Book of Vanitas. So I want to see what it did now. We have the chain and everything. And it has all these pages, like their names that have been collected over time, right? They're like, let's reclaim her true name. So it's almost like it's trying to cleanse and take back the darkness, which would make sense if you take back the darkness. That's why the pages are black. They've taken back the maladies. Okay. And then the briars disintegrate. And he says that the light's her own, which again, he says, oh, no, this light isn't from me. It's from you, which again makes me think that the book is not exactly, the book is what's causing all the darkness. She's just going back to the light and helping herself. Okay. And then, yeah, I love, what a schmoozer. What a schmoozer, too. I get such, like, player vibes from Vanitas, where he's like, I just want to be, like, flirty with everybody. Like him holding her, being like, Floraphel who guides spring. Like her name meaning. Mm-hmm. That is your true name. Like, he just looks so handsome there. Like, how would you not be swooned by him? And him, like, holding her face. And I like that Noi is like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. And the guy in the back's like, psh, why does he get all the girls? Right? So funny. I absolutely love it. Okay. And then he's just like, Noi's like instantly in love with this man. Like, instantly. And then all of a sudden the guards show up. And I love these, like, well, what do we do now? And Vanitas is like, I don't know. I didn't think this far ahead. And instead he just, like, jumps out the window. He's like, stay out of my way. Some friendly advice. Oh my gosh, if you don't, you're in a world of hurt. And he just gets hit by the boulder. And then just stumbles out like a damn Sherlock, you know. And then Noi grabs a hold of him. So we cut back to the blue moon, right? We cut back to the idea of the blue moon. And I can bring his toys somewhere. But we cut back to the blue moon. And we cut back to him as a kid. Now, this whole sky I didn't think much about it during the reaction, but it started to draw my attention. Like, the blue moon in the sky, it's like a cracked sky. What? It looks very weird. The blue light is said to rob a vampire of their powers. Makes sense, tied to the maladies, right? A symbol of misfortune. But, like, they're sitting there in the sunlight or the moonlight against it, and he's reading the story. And then he, like, looks at it and says, but sensei, in my eyes, that moon is beautiful to behold. And so, yeah, then there's the creepy guy there, but his hair doesn't, maybe, is it black, is it blonde? We don't know. But he's smiling, so I'm like, does he think that maybe Noi is going to become a Vanitas eventually? I don't know. Interesting. He says the moon's beautiful, so is that going to be, is his sensei Vanitas? I have all the questions. And then he's looking at the moon again. I love Vanitas just stuck there being like, well, this was quite the landing. How'd I end up here? What is this? And then, like, Noi plucks him out like a carrot out of the ground. What did you do to her? Like, what did you do to change her? And he says, a reverse operation. I removed the alteration formula. The malady is corrupting her true name. Okay, so he basically explains that he just reversed the process, turning her back to normal. It was nothing. And he's like, what do you mean it was nothing? Like, my teacher told me a true name is a vampire's life itself, the constitutive formula forming their existence. So your name is your soul. It encompasses who you are entirely. It can't be taken by anyone else. And he's like, you gave her name back. I love that he's praising him so much and, like, saying how he's so glad that the Book of Vanitas isn't some just folk tale. And then I love the chibi versions of him. He's like, I've never seen anyone look upon the book with such stars in their eyes. I love it. I love the chibi versions of them. It's so cute. And I love that he's just like the little version where he's like, did I say something funny? It's absolutely cute. It's precious and I love it. Noi. A child of the Ark. So interesting. I wonder if there's going to be more to that whole child of the Ark thing. And then I love that he's saying I am Vanitas as the bisexual lighting is like right all behind him. The purple lighting and the blues with the mixed with the magenta. Yeah. Go show. Give us what you want. Give us what we need. The book and my name were passed down to me by the vampire of the blue moon. So yeah, so he's been given this book, and anyone who touches the book will have the power to destroy vampires, supposedly, or cure them in this case. But he says his name was passed down, so it's just like a title. It's like if Sherlock passed down his title and deductive powers. Yet I'm but a human. And so he's like, lend me your strength, no. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. He's like, I'm still only a human, so there are limitations to what I can do even with this book. But, you know, if a vampire were to help me out, it'd be great. With your great fighting ability and your sturdy body, I'm sure that we would, you'd make a fine shield for me. I like he's like, you'd make a fine shield. And he's like, no, that's a hard pass. No. He's like, oh, I just knew you'd be delighted. And he's like, wait, what? Absolutely hilarious. A surge in rampaging vampires after maladies violated their true names. So we've got a problem, right? Something's been causing some issues. He's like, if we don't stop it, vampires will go extinct. And then, of course, he has to, like, smile, flash that smirk, right? I'll make sure that it doesn't happen. I'll do as I... And so here's the thing. He's like, look, I'm here to save the vampires, but it has to be on my terms. I'm going to do as I please, and I'll use the methods that I choose. So it's going to be unorthodox, it's going to be chaotic, and y'all are just going to sit back and watch it happen. So I hope you're ready. And then Noi, it matters not what you people want. So he's like, I don't care what the vampires tell me about the situation. And he's like, I will save the vampires. That's interesting. So that makes me wonder if there's going to be a vampire that maybe lets the malady take over because they just want to, like, end their life or something like that. I don't know what we're going to do with that, but that's interesting. And then I love that it's just like this big moment where it's supposed to be this grand end of episode thing. And Noi's like, oh. Like seeing the light shining upon him. That was how it began. As he's writing back the tale of how I met Vanitas and together wandered life's path. Okay, we also got things. There was much we gained and much we lost. Okay, and we see somebody at a window. And we see blood. All right. What else we getting? And we see somebody in front of a mausoleum stone. And then... oh, come on. And somebody with red hair at a window. Okay. And somebody inside the terrarium. At the end of our journey. Uh-huh. He says I had to kill Vanitas. I would slay him by my own hand. What? What show? How dare you? How dare you give us that? And of course the last images of the two of them, like the claw on the hands and necks and things. Yeah. Creating this ship. This show. All right. Game on. You get me this ship them show. And I like that Vanitas is still trying to get him to lend him his strength. And he's like, no. He's like, you're annoying. I'm famished. He's like, so I'm wondering how he does the blood thing. And then he's like, I need to go back and get Myrrh. And he's like, no, we're going to get caught. You're taking us back to the beginning? In the event of rusty hopes. And episode 2 will be in the City of Flowers. In the event of rusty hopes. That's an interesting title. I feel like the title of it is going to come back and have much more significance later on in the series. Rusty hopes. Like hope has appeared after a while, but it may be too soon to say it's going to be fruitful. Interesting. But I like it so far. I'm all about Noi. I'm all about him. I'm all about Vanitas and his diva-ness. I'm ready for this. I feel like that the dynamic between the two of them is going to be really good. I hope we get to see the red-haired guy again. He seemed fun. But I'm curious to see like what other characters we get introduced to as the season goes on. If we're going to see Florafel again. If we're going to catch up with her. Or what's going to happen. So, yeah. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below on what you all thought of this initial episode. I'm super excited for episode 2, and I hope you all are as well. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I will be back very soon with episode 2 of the case study of Vanitas. Bye!